Good morning. Are you troubled at the thought of dying? Tell it to Jesus. Trust you had a good week in the Lord. We did. I appreciate your prayers. We had a good trip. Very good trip. And the last service we was here, John got up here in his devotion and said, we foolishly say, I can't wait to see what the Lord has for you. And I apologize, brother, but I really didn't hear anything else that service. That just lit me up.
What?
That was what because I have foolishly said that before, not really thinking. And we talk about are you troubled at the thought of dying? Most of the time we try to sell heaven to appeal to the flesh. But our flesh ain't going to heaven. And there again, we try to appeal to people with God on the fleshly side. I can't wait to see what God has in store for you. And I got to thinking, if I'd have told y'all know my little nephew that lost his daddy, what if I'd have told him that? When Ananias went to see Saul, who became Paul, God told him, he said, you tell him, he's a chosen vessel, but he's going to suffer greatly for my name. And I got to think about the things I've suffered greatly for his name, and I'm proud of that now. It's chastening is grievous when you're going through it. And so I'm not going to tell you seniors, I can't wait to see what the Lord has for you, because we don't know. But if you stick with the naked truth, it's going to be painful, especially in this world now that really hates the truth, despise it. As I've mentioned before, these prophets of old were not persecuted and killed for lying. They just weren't. It was the truth. They didn't want to hear the truth. Heaping to themselves teachers that have itching ears. And I am thankful for this place here that God's brought us. It was not an easy journey. It was not an easy journey. But I wouldn't take nothing from a journey now. David here in 2 Samuel 23, he says, now these be the last words of David. David the son of Jesse said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of God of Jacob, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel. We've followed David through here from the field to the throne. And the mood here this morning has kind of gone along with what I want to talk about a little bit here. You know, the old hymn says, roll back the curtain of memory now and then. Show me where you brought me from and where I could have been. Remember I'm human and humans forget. So remind me, dear Lord, how quick we forget. Brother Harold sitting there, I didn't think I'd ever look at him and see him again, brother. It's a blessing. But as human, I forget that I'm serving a God that lit that sun out there, that made all of this. And David, I mentioned last time, David was called praise crazy. And that's because he was constantly reminding himself that he was just the son of Jesse in a little town of Bethlehem. You remember in 1 Samuel 16, when God directed Samuel to go anoint him, he said, I've chosen me a king. He said, for I have provided me a king among his sons. Have you ever thought about where you could be today? That scares me now. David knew how wicked and undeserving he was of the unmerited favor. That's a fascinating chapter if you go back and look at how I love how God, and what I have seen with this, I want God to tell me everything's going to happen tomorrow. I would have loved for him to tell me they were going to wake me up at 2 o'clock this morning and I wasn't going to get back to bed at 5 o'clock. So I would have been ready for it. But he didn't do it. And with Samuel, he just said, there's a son in the house of Jesse. Now here's a prophet, one of the greatest judges of Israel. And God only gives him instructions step by step. And if you follow that chapter through, as Samuel is obedient to each step, God reveals the next step. And that's how it's going to be in our lives, folks. God's not going to just roll out, hey, this is where you're going, this is how it's going to be. God didn't even give Samuel David's name. But as Samuel progressed through that and got there, y'all know Jesse brought in the firstborn, the good-looking one. And Samuel said, surely this is the Lord's anointed. And God said, nope, you're looking on the outside, but I look on the inside. And you remember, they had done this sacrifice and this thing because Samuel feared Saul was going to kill him. Remember? So the Lord said, go and do a sacrifice and invite Jesse and his sons. They didn't even bring David. David was not even invited to the party. And after they marched all 7 of them through there, the Lord had rejected all of them. Samuel said, is this all your sons? He said, the youngest is in the field tending the sheep. So David knew God had picked him. If you're sitting here this morning, has God picked you? Show me where you brought me from and where I could have been. And that's what David says here. The son of Jesse, the man who was raised up on high. That's why he spent his whole life writing Psalms, to remind himself. You'll find a lot of things in David. There's one thing I can't find. Pride. Pride. He's very humble in the fact that he knew God put him where he was. And I fight that when I broke John's internet the other night. Had to go fix it. Clay's fault, But Ben said, Clay, I got something I want to show you on my phone. He had a meme, and it was somebody that had a hand with 7 pencils, Donald, and they were writing. It was one of those 7-Eleven songs. It said, writing a new praise song. And I told Kim, I said, they are listening. And a little bit of pride started welling up. And the Lord said, hey, you better remember I did that. And in verse 2 here, what does David say? The Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and His word was in my tongue. The Spirit of the Lord. Listen, to speak, you got to breathe, don't you? The God-breathed word. I want to challenge us this morning. I'm a nobody to the world. I kind of appreciate that now. But I'm a somebody to Him. He provided Himself a mouthpiece out of my household. What a blessing. I've got friends that have no regard for any of this. And it doesn't bother them. It saddens me. And David knew this here. In fact, we'll see later on as we go through this chapter, he talks about how the wicked's going to be cast out. The sons of Belial. So relish this morning in the fact of the mercies and the unmerited favor that God has granted us. And that we don't walk in darkness. I hope His words are on my tongue this morning. I hope you reflect, like I said, on where He's brought you from and where you could have been. David knew it wasn't that he was good. Listen, a lot of times when I'm wrong or bad, or I think, God's not going to have nothing to do with me. You ever get like that? No. Oh, good. Y'all have arrived. David is reminding us also That God didn't pick him because he was good. The Kingsmen sing a song, and I love to listen to that song. It says, "Tell me, what did he ever see in me? The grave was my destiny. Tell me, what did he ever see in me?" I hope this morning we remember, just as David did. In his last will and testament here, he might as well have said, David being of sound mind and body, as we're going to follow through this chapter and look. He gives his last will and testament. And it's all, listen, it's not about the sorrows of his life being over, but we'll see it's about him prophesying a King of Kings who was to come. Forward looking, even in his last days, the word of the Lord was on his tongue. And may it be on our tongue in this coming week. I hope I blessed you this morning. Listen, I just want to shout. That I am, brother. This has been burning on me when I saw this, that God has singled me out. I didn't pick him. It is something. If I say I picked him, there's pride there. David said, I didn't pick him. I was out in the sheep field tending sheep. They said, boy, come to the house. Somebody's here to see you. Somebody's here to see you. And he thanked God the rest of his life, as much as he could, as constantly as he could, that God had singled him out to save him. His rock, his fortress, the God of his salvation. May the Lord bless you this morning.